we had a couple of speeches we could watch last night. One was the rebuttal speech with Senator Katie Britt, and the other was RFK Jr. And they were very different speeches. And RFK Jr., of course, really hit the positive that you're talking about. I want everybody to just see a little bit of that.
We become a nation of chronic illness, of violence, of loneliness, depression and division and poverty. Our great cities are becoming tent encampments, modern-day Hoovervilles filled with undocumented immigrants and dispossessed Americans and people living in their cars. 80% of Americans say they don't want to be forced to choose in this election between the lesser of two evils. They're tired of voting against something or someone.
He said they want to vote for something, and they want somebody to tell them it's going to get better. Veteran political journalists have urged, do not ignore Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and his third-party presidential bid. I want to get both your takes. And Mark, I understand your audio is back now. Hopefully you can hear the sound of my voice again. What's your take on RFK Jr.? And first of all, have you seen that video?
I hadn't seen that video. I could see the direction that he was going. And you have to look at last night as the president took the direction that he was giving a Democratic convention speech. It wasn't a State of the Union at all, that he felt that he was so low that he had to rally his base, and rallying his base would be successful. And in contrast, Kennedy is going to say, I'm coming up the middle here. I don't see that as you, President Biden, that the country's in good shape. I see it as in bad shape,
yes,
and in search of a new moderate solution. I think, this is an intelligent opening for Kennedy.
It's interesting. It's like a reopening for him. He's been around 16 to 20% all along. Now he starts to tick up. And I mentioned earlier on the program that he's reaching the horizon now, Charlie. I mean, if he gets on the ballot in battleground states, he could really be a problem for maybe not even one, but both these candidates.
Yeah. No, it's kind of hard to see, because he is such a renegade, it's kind of hard to see, who he is more problematic for. I think ultimately he ends up being far more problematic for Joe Biden, mainly because, obviously he's a Democrat. But bigger picture, he is an old school Democrat, a true liberal, the kind of Democrat that I think a lot of conservatives like myself would like to see the Democrat Party return to, because it was a sane party. It was a party that believed in clean water, and obviously nobody has a better record of fighting for clean water and clean air than RFK Jr. does. And it's a total contrast with the lunacy that we saw unfold on the floor of the House last night, where the Democrat Party has become the party of war. I mean, they leapt to their feet for talking about all this billions and billions of dollars of funding for Ukraine. And wherever you are on that, the need for that, it's a strange thing to see the entire Democrat, the half of the chamber, lustily applauding for spending $100 billion on a war overseas. It's kind of crazy. It's a big break from 20 years ago.
So, Mark, one of the things that people have said that I've spoken with who watched that video yesterday, and I could totally see their point, they felt seen and heard by RFK Jr. in a way that they did not feel seen by Joe Biden in his speech last night. We don't have a lot of time, but your thought.
Well, look, I think that's the big issue. Did Joe Biden connect with the average voter when he said that basically, he blamed the border on the Republicans, said crime was going down and the economy was good. Mm-hmm. But he hit all sorts of red meat economic issues, and he hit particularly well for women voters and Democratic voters. And he's saying that's all I need to win.
Hey everybody, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. here. You know what, I was a student just like you. I had the privilege of working on my Uncle Ted Kennedy's presidential campaign in 1980, and it changed my life. It instilled in me a deep sense of responsibility to serve others and to fight for a vision of an America that I believed in. And it opened up my horizons about the American political process and the excitement of a campaign. It was a time that shaped my dedication to public service and that ignited a passion in me to make a difference. With that in mind, I'm thrilled to tell all of you about our student ambassador and internship program at Team Kennedy. This opportunity isn't just about getting involved in a campaign, it's about shaping the future of our country. By joining our program, you'll have the chance to make a real impact, whether it's organizing events or reaching out to voters or advocating for important issues. You'll find that your voice matters. We need passionate, dedicated young people like you to be part of this movement. Together, we can create a positive change and build a brighter future for all Americans. So if you're ready to be part of something bigger than yourself, I invite you to join Team Kennedy today. Together, let's make history.
From the beginning of our national history, our most visionary political leaders have been warning Americans against the domination of corporate power. Teddy Roosevelt, a Republican, said that America would never be destroyed by a foreign enemy, by a Taliban or by, an Iran, but he warned that our beloved democratic institutions would be subverted by malefactors of great wealth who would steal them from within. Dwight Eisenhower, a Republican, in his most famous speech ever, warned Americans against the domination by the military-industrial complex, by corporate power. Abraham Lincoln, the greatest Republican in American history, said in 1863, during the height of the Civil War, "I have the South in front of me, and I have the bankers behind me. And for my nation, I fear the bankers more." And Franklin Roosevelt, during World War II, said that the domination of government by corporate power is, quote, the essence of fascism. And Benito Mussolini, with an insider's view of that process, said the same thing. He complained that fascism should not be called fascism, it should be called corporatism, because it was the merger of state and corporate power. What happens when corporations dominate our government? You see that human beings are turned into commodities, communities are turned into commodities, and the environment, the landscapes are turned into commodities. And that's what's going to happen across America unless we turn back this ascendancy of corporate power, and this battle is the beginning of that. Thank you all very much for participating.
How do we get away from this corporate power?
The problem is not even the control of the parties, it's the control of the regulatory agencies, the phenomena that's called corporate capture, where the regulated industry become sock puppets for the industries they're supposed to regulate. And then the Fed, of course, has now been captured by Wall Street. The Fed, which is now, has nothing to do with the interests of the American people. It's all about printing money to enhance the wealth of the group that control it. I've sued NIH, CDC, EPA, FCC, FDA, all of them. I've brought many suits against the Department of Agriculture. The USDA represents and promotes the interests of big factory farms, of industrial agriculture, of big companies like Monsanto, and Cargill, Tyson's, Purdue, and the big petroleum fertilizer companies, in other words, the oil companies. And they really, USDA operates full-time to punish and destroy the small farmer in this country and to promote the mercantile interest of these big industrial agricultural interests. Americans can see the corruption, and we all have this feeling that this system has been rigged against the American middle class. They're strip mining the wealth from the American people and destroying the health of our children and causing this chronic disease epidemic that is the biggest blight on the American middle class in our country, and that it's being used to benefit this oligarchy, this new corporate kleptocracy.
What we need in the United States is not division. What we need in the United States is not hatred. What we need in the United States is not violence and lawlessness, but is love and wisdom and compassion toward one another.
Every nation has a darker side, and the easiest thing for a politician to do is to appeal to our hatred and our anger and our bigotry and greed and xenophobia and all of the alchemies of demagoguery. My father and my uncle had a vision for America, a vision of racial harmony, of prosperity for all Americans, of peace in the world, and of honest government. Their lives were tragically cut short, and America took a different path. Yet the possibility they foresaw is still alive, the America that almost was, and yet may be. I've been fighting corporate corruption my entire life, but I understand that today the problem is much larger than a few crooked individuals.